Hey everyone, it's Melody here. Welcome to Author Nation. Today I'm interviewing Joel Mark Harris, who is an author, ghostwriter, and marketer. We are going to be talking about ghostwriting, but first, let me introduce him to you. After he graduated from the Langara School of Journalism in 2007, he worked as a newspaper reporter, PR specialist, and before diving into marketing head first. He founded several companies, marketing companies, to help businesses grow and scale. Then he jumped into ghostwriting, and he has a ghostwriting company called Ghostwriters & Co. It's a premier content agency designed to help people tell their stories. Such important work. With ghostwriting, Joel is able to combine all of his passions into one. And that's not all. That's the really important, what you need to know stuff. This next bit I think is super exciting. Joel is also an award-winning journalist, novelist, screenwriter, and producer. His first novel, Thousand Bayonets, they won an Editor's Choice Award and the Pinnacle Achievement for Best Thriller, and I love thrillers, so for me that's exciting. His feature-length film Neutral Territory won 10 awards and played in festivals across the world. He was the story writer and the screenwriter on that. He's ghostwritten numerous books in all types of genres, including true life crime, business, memoir, and self-help. He has helped hundreds of business owners scale their business and increase their visibility. Joel, welcome to Author Nation.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm blushing from that intro. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's fabulous. I love that you've done both an award-winning novel and an award-winning screenplay. It shows your versatility, and I'm a huge fan of thrillers. So that's for me. That I love a good thriller, right? But something that stuck out to me in your bio about you is your degree in journalism. I don't have a degree in journalism. It's kind of related, but not journalism. And I've always thought that people who study journalism just have something. I don't know what it is. Like there's something about a journalism degree that just makes them savvy or good at investigating or asking the right questions and getting and digging down into something. Can you tell us a little bit about your journalism?
Sure. So the Langara School of Journalism program is an amazing program. I did the diploma, which is 2 years, and it was really hands-on. A lot like UBC is a great program as well, but it's more theory. And theory is great, but you really, to become a good journalist, you obviously need to get your hands dirty and get in there. And they kind of, I don't want to say throw you off the deep end, but you get into stories and storytelling, and you have to interview people and phone people and cold call and all that stuff. So it's a great program. I highly recommend it for anyone who's looking at going into journalism. I think, some of the things that I learned was interviewing, super important skill, and most people think that interviewing is just asking questions, but it's not. There's there's so much more to it. And it's getting to the crux of the issue or the matter, and it's really about it's really about making sure that you get the right information out of the person, because they may be embarrassed, or there's so many reasons why they might not want to convey what you need, right? And so I think for journalism, it's really about it's a people profession, really, right? So you learn about how to deal with people, how to figure out how to deal with pressure and get stories under deadline, and there's so much. I can go on and on about all the different stuff I learned in journalism, but I would say that's sort of like the main things that I learned.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it when you said interviewing. Like that, I think that's it. And I suspect that plays a lot into your ghostwriting. So how long have you been ghostwriting?
So I've been ghostwriting for 10 years now. I've only really, I would say, seriously made a profession in the last 2 years. And you're right. ghostwriting is a lot about interviews and making sure that you extract that information from the author, whoever you're talking to. But yeah, no, it's a great profession. For people who like writing, who are writers, but they struggle with making a living through creative arts, I would highly recommend ghostwriting as a great profession, because there's actually so much work out there, and especially with COVID right now, there's even more work. So it's such an amazing profession, because I get to interview so many people. It goes back to what we're talking about, journalism, right? I get to interview so many amazing people, so many amazing entrepreneurs. Just yesterday, I'll just give you a quick example. I was talking to a potential client who is an Ethiopian refugee, and he escaped. He actually went through the Sahara Desert, went through Sudan, and ended up on the border of Israel. And it's just such an amazing story. He was bombed by Egyptian fighter planes, and he was put in jail for 2 years and finally came to Canada. What other profession would I get to hear these stories? And I think these are stories where, I know I'm talking to the person who knows the importance of storytelling, but these stories are so important to tell. And I think that ghostwriters are able to convey those stories and magnify their voices, which it's kind of like a modern, it's kind of like a twist on journalism, but like it's a modern day journalism field. And so, it's definitely a great profession.
No, that's super exciting. And I agree. And I don't ghostwrite. That's one of the skills or one of the services I don't offer, right? I don't do that. But I do a lot of, when I work with authors, I do a lot of interviewing them. And then I give them the content. I give them the transcript, and they have a lot of the book content there, because I know what to ask. I know how to pull it out. I know how to help them organize it. So we do similar things. So you actually go that one step further with your clients, right? Which is, I think, really cool. I want to talk about ghostwriting from the perspective of the ghostwriter and from the perspective of the author, because I actually think ghostwriting is kind of a mysterious thing for people. Like people, you ask them about ghostwriting, they're like, well, I've heard the word and I know I can tell you what it is, but I don't actually understand it. So let's start from the ghostwriter's perspective. What's involved in ghostwriting from your perspective?
Well, you need a system. I would say that's the most important point. So just to break it down into chunks, you have the interview portion, which we already talked about. You get that story, you put it into an outline. It's just like a chapter outline of this is their life story, or this is what the author is trying to convey. And then you start writing, first chapter and so forth. And then you get a first draft, and then you talk to the author about, kind of what they like about it, what they don't like. And then there's usually a couple reiterations of that draft before you get to the editing stage. And there's always a couple stages of editing, like the writing. There is the content edit stage, which you usually get somebody else to do. You don't get the ghostwriter to do, because outside perspective is super important, and they can see where the gaps are in the story, or what information is missing. By that time, the ghostwriter is already pretty much knee deep into the story, and so they have blinders on generally. And so that outside perspective is super important to make sure that the story flows, there's the right information, the points correctly hit. And then you have the copy editing, which is the nitty gritty, which is the grammar, the syntax, spelling, that sort of thing. And then you're ready for publishing.
Yeah, no, that's great, because I think a lot of times authors don't really understand. So for you to break it down for authors and say, look, this is the process from my perspective, they're going to be like, oh, I get it. And it's going to help them find the right ghostwriter and work with a ghostwriter in a way that's going to be more successful for both, right? So why would an author choose to go ghostwriting versus for example, I do writing coaching and I do content editing, and you do ghostwriting, and these are very different things, and people would choose one over the other for very specific reasons. Can you just delve into that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different reasons why you'd want a ghostwriter. Primarily, I find the two are time and time and money, basically. And also that they don't have necessarily the skill set to sit down and write a full length novel. So a lot of people who I work with, they're busy entrepreneurs. They're busy running their businesses. They're busy making sales or helping the clients, right? And then they understand the content piece. They understand the importance of a book. They want to get a message out, but they just don't have the time or discipline to be able to sit down and write it. And so I'm able to do that and help them out and just basically leverage their existing, time, network, whatever it is, and get a book completed. I would say, like, on top of that, what I am also able to provide is really like a sounding board. So a lot of people who they have a story in their head and they kind of know what it looks like on paper, but they don't know how to translate that from their mind into the computer or whatever it is. And so I'm able to kind of massage that information, ask the right questions. Again, it goes back to that interviewing, ask the right questions and making sure that their message is conveyed in a way that doesn't just make sense to them, but makes sense to their audience, right? And their audience is able to understand what is being said. A lot of the time it can be a complex subject or like a complex idea that they're trying to get across. And so I'm able to kind of massage it into a way that is easy to understand and easy digestible.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Thank you. So I'm an author, let's say, and I've just heard you answer those questions and I'm ready to go. I'm like, that's it. I want a ghostwriter. What do I do next? Where do you find one? I mean, obviously, everyone's watching this is going to contact you, but who other people? Like, where do you find one? How do you choose one? Where does an author even start?
Yeah, that's such an important question. Because there are so many choices out there. You can get like a low-level ghostwriter off of Fiverr or Upwork, and obviously, like, you basically get what you pay for. Google's a great place to start. Just Google. Associations are also really important. There's a Ghostwriter Association, which I'm a part of, and I'm a huge fan of. I can share the link with your audience too. There's like a myriad of different types of ghostwriters there. I think for like when you interview, you obviously, like any other position, you want to interview multiple ghostwriters. You don't want to just choose the first one that comes across Google or wherever, right? So I think the biggest thing is trust in the ghostwriter. Because a lot of the time what you're basically entrusting the ghostwriter with your voice. And that's like one of the most important aspects of any sort of relationship, right? So you're trusting the ghostwriter basically to talk for you. And that is very difficult. So you need to make sure that that you just really jive with the ghostwriter, that they understand you. And the only way to do that is through, several conversations and asking the right questions and making sure that you feel comfortable with them. Because if you're going to hold back or you're not going to divulge everything to that ghostwriter because, there's just something about them that you don't like or you don't quite understand, then it can be a very difficult relationship. And so you basically, it's almost like a therapist, right? You have to make sure that you have the right match. Yes. It's not to say that there's, just because they're a good ghostwriter, it may not be a good ghostwriter for you, right? So making sure that, like I said, you dive, that you feel comfortable with them, and that you think you can work with them in the long term. Because again, ghostwriting is not a short-term process. Generally, a book takes anywhere between 8 months to a year, and even longer sometimes to complete. So you have to be happy with them in the long term. And so that I would say that trust is super important.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because, I was thinking, it's like, look, you're an award-winning writer. Why wouldn't I want you to write it, right? Like, that seems important to me. And it is, but you're right. There's also that trust, right? And that kind of jive. It's like, if I'm writing a story that's very sensitive and I come to you and it's like, I need to really be sure that like you understand how sensitive it is for me, and you're going to, you are the right level of, some people want someone who's really gentle. Other people want somebody who's like really like go, go, go. And so that kind of match too. What a great, great perspective. Thank you for that. So I've chosen a ghostwriter. What are my responsibilities as an author? Like, how much work am I, like, you get this image. It's like, he's ghostwriting my book. Here's the idea, go run with it, right? I'm sure that there's a lot more work involved for me than I think there is as an author, right? And I find that with editing clients. So like, what, you're not just going to do it all? It's like, no, I'm the editor, not the writer. You're doing the writing. But, and you're the writer now, but you don't have any of the content. So what are my responsibilities around that as well?
That's a great question as well. I think, so the author is conveying their message to their audience, right? So the ghostwriter is just a portal to get that message out there. And so you have to make sure that what you're saying is clear, that you have great ideas. And also, like, if you're doing a memoir or like an autobiography, you have to kind of go back and really do like a deep dive into your own personal life. And I mentioned that there's like a therapy relationship. It's sort of the same here, right? You have to be willing to be vulnerable with your ghostwriter, because that's where all the great stories are told, is when you're vulnerable and you're authentic and you share your life. And I think with a ghostwriter, like they want to hear both the good stuff and the bad stuff, right? And I think your audience also, they don't want just a polished version of yourself, because people just aren't like that. They can see through that image, and they know that it's not quite real. And so I think again, it goes back to trust. If you're not willing to trust your ghostwriter and trust the process, then it's going to be very difficult for the ghostwriter to get something that you're happy with. And so, I think it's a matter of trusting the process. If you choose the right ghostwriter, you need to be willing to share that information, be vulnerable, and go places where you normally wouldn't go as well. I think that's super important. And be willing to take the time and really think out your process, your ideas, and all the stuff that goes into like writing a book.
Yeah, and I get that, because when I'm working with people writing memoir, they want to just say this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's like, no, how does this relate to the rest of the world? What were the insights you had? How are you feeling? What was that? Where was the bottom? And how did you get out of the bottom? And how did you rise? And what are the insights and what are the learnings? And how does this fit into the world as a whole and other people in these experiences? Like, there's so much more depth. So as the author, I need to trust you. I need to hand over documents to you. I need to answer questions for you. Do you ever look at photographs? Like, what are all the things I'm going to land up giving you? Interviews? Is there anything else?
I don't think so. Yeah, documents, photographs, videos, like pretty much anything that you can, that is relevant to the story, I would say. I think you touched on something. I'll just be brief, but you touched on something really important. I think is the feeling, right? Is that a lot of the time, especially when it's something, I ghostwrite some books and they've been through horrific circumstances. One of my authors, he was a paraplegic and he was abused as a child, and it was really hard to get that information. So, you have to just be willing to trust the process, to be vulnerable and go there. And sometimes it can be difficult. And so, making sure that you have the right ghostwriter is super important.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And then you did say that it's probably a minimum of 8 months. It couldn't take much longer, depending on the complexity of the story, the length of the story, how much information that there is for you to go through. So it could be 8 months to like 18 months, probably. What about cost. I mean, you said you could grab someone on Fiverr or Upwork, although I wouldn't recommend it. If you're thinking about this, ghostwriter is giving you 8 months of their life, 18 months of their lives, and they have bills to pay and families to feed, and that's a significant investment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can start at the very bottom, and you can get books ghostwritten for as little as $2,500. But of course, yeah, again, wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
Because you are, the book is an extension of yourself, and you're using it, whatever, for marketing, for sharing with your family. You want it to be professional, right? So I would say, a minimum you want to spend is between like $25,000 and $30,000.
Yeah.
And that you get like a really professional ghostwriter. You get quality work. Sometimes it can go up to $100,000, depending on what, kind of like what you want. Some of the more experienced ghostwriters charge that, and so, yeah, it's quite a wide variety of price ranges. But I think you need to really figure out what do you want from this book, kind of work your way backwards. If you want to become use it as like a marketing tool, if you want to become a New York Times bestseller, if you want to use it to get speaking engagements, then you want a very high quality book. And then you can look at it as an investment as well, right? So I wouldn't necessarily look at it as cost, but what are you getting from this relationship? So just to kind of recap, I would say $30,000 is a good price range. You get a quality ghostwriter in that price range.
Yeah, I mean, for $2,500, do you want to put your name on it? Is a good question.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you really want people to say, that's what you wrote? No, and that makes perfect sense. Like thinking about the depth of the level of work, the number of hours, the care and attention, the process. $30,000 doesn't seem unreasonable at all for a ghostwriter. And although I think when people don't know what the process is, they don't know what's involved. You hear a price tag of $30,000, you're like, oh my gosh, really? But when you think it through and think about, the responsibilities of each and the whole process, that doesn't seem unreasonable at all. So I know you work across different genres, but I want to ask you, what is your favorite type of client to work with? Who do you love working with?
That is such a hard question. This may sound cliche, but I do love working with all my clients because they all have such amazing stories to tell. They all come from different backgrounds, and then I think it's kind of too here in Vancouver, right? You have people from all over, and so I get to work on stories. Like I said, a guy from Ethiopia, a guy from Syria, and so there's some great stories. One that sticks out to me is the true crime book that I wrote. And that was a local guy from here in Vancouver. He got caught up in some bad crowds and got into drugs and smuggling and all that. And he, at the kind of peak of his career in quotation marks, as a drug dealer, he made $1 million a week. And he bought a plane, and he had just such crazy stories. So he would take off from Abbotsford Airport. So for people who are local, that's one of our local airports. And he would fly over Washington State, and he would literally chuck duffel bags of drugs into these big football stadiums. And then he would go the next day. He would go drive across the border and pick them up, and then drive down to LA. I don't know. So the stories like that. Yeah, I know. There's stories like that, and I could keep going. I mean, there's so many different stories, but I think that stories like that are super interesting and just need to be told are great. And so I think it just to kind of recap, I would say I think the clients who have interesting stories and that are able to convey them in interesting ways are, they're great clients. They kind of make, for interesting clients and interesting books for sure.
Sounds like you really like writing memoir. And like real life stories rather than kind of dry, just don't bring me a very dry research book, although you do it and you'd be great at it, but you really love those like that, the complexity of real life. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's my background in journalism. That's the reason I got into journalism, was to meet different people, to amplify their story, to convey their message to a wider audience. I've just translated that into ghostwriting.
Yes, I think that's brilliant. I really do. Where can authors reach you?
So ghostwritersandco.com is my website. You can email me at info@ghostwritersandco.com. I'm on all the social media handles. I really like Twitter.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So Joel Mark Harris at Joel Mark Harris is probably the best place you can find me on Twitter. Hit me up there. Facebook, Instagram. All the usual places.
So I'll get all of that from Joel, and I'll put it all in the description, along with I'll put Joel's book too in the description in case you want to check that out. I don't know if you have a link to the movie you can send me as well that we can check out. And then you also said that, the Ghostwriting Association. So Joel will send me all of that. I will make sure all of that goes in the description so you can find it there nice and easily. Thank you, Joel, for going through that with us today. It was really, really useful.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and privilege to be able to talk to your audience.
Yeah, thank you. And I think ghostwriting can be a mystery for people. So I think you've just unraveled that mystery. Authors, thanks for watching. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a comment, just drop the comment in. I'll let Joel know you commented, and he can come in and answer any questions you have. Give us some thumbs up love. And if you would like more, please subscribe. Thank you so much.